Coming to you direct from Silencer Shop Studios, home of the Glass Case of Emotion.
SilencerShop.com, the easiest way to buy silencers online, period.
Stand by for education, enlightenment, enjoyment, and entertainment.
He's not here to talk about your feelings. He's not here to say what you want to hear. He's here to say what needs to be said.
Ladies and gentlemen and children of all ages, please welcome your host, the pimp hand of America, Professor Paul Markel.
All right. We got a special treat for you guys today, and it is a Thursday special treat. I know that I say this every time, but it's true. We don't deliberately plan this to happen on Thursday. That's just the way the stars align. So either way, congratulations to you because you're getting a special treat, and it didn't cost you anything. For the same cost of admission, you get a special treat. Don't you feel special? Hey, Jared. I do. Should I say special one more time?
Yeah, special.
Like oven mitts and hockey helmet special?
Yep.
That kind of special? Okay.
Sounds like you're speaking from experience there.
I don't know. You tell me, white helmet boy. It is Thursday's show. We've got a special guest who's hanging out on the line. Maybe while he's waiting, he's putting his pictures up. We don't know. But before we get into it, we want to thank our friends. We want to acknowledge them, folks at Duracoat. And I see some of you people on the social media have been going bananas with your Duracoat because life is too short to have an ugly gun. Brownells at brownells.com. If you have a gun, even if you don't have a gun, they've got something for you, so check them out. Make sure you get on their mailing list so that you are hip to all their specials and deals, because quite frankly, if you wait 48 hours to discover a Brownells deal, it's probably sold out.
Did you see that on the Liberty Mastermind group that people found the Political Thought of the American Revolution book, and then by the time other people went to go get it, it was gone, or it cost $150. Oh
yeah, I found one for like $5, and I dropped the link in the Mastermind group, and people were like, and it's gone.
Yep.
And I'd like to claim total and sole responsibility for running Amazon out of those books.
That would be nice. Huh?
Well, we have. I mean, who else is doing it? But we started promoting that book years ago.
Hey, when I pin down, everybody that can hear my voice, when I finally pin down the person that has the rights to that book, because I'm kind of in a circle right now. I'm getting thrown in a circle.
But infinite loop, yeah.
Yeah, when I pin down who it is, I'm going to give you their contact info so you can go ahead and say, hey, we want this.
Maybe our special guest could help us out. He's kind of a literary genius.
This is true.
Frog Lube, it just works. Check it out at Brownells or wherever you buy your favorite Frog Lube products. Maybe you buy them at Carl's Jr. I don't know.
Because they pay me.
There you go. SWAT Fuel. Go to SWATfuelstore.com and hook yourself up. Use the promo code SOTG2015. And lastly but not leastly, Century Arms, the sweetest smelling arms maker in America.
I want to repeat this one more time because I don't remember if I said it on the grad program last week or not. But I was enlightened. I was told that the money that you save on SWAT Fuel by being a member of the grad program actually pays for your grad program membership. So if you use SWAT Fuel and you would like to be a grad program member but you're tight on finances, sign up, use the promo code. It'll save you the money. You'll get 2 for 1.
It's like a wash. Wow, that's crazy. All right, go ahead and I want to hear from Alex. I haven't heard from her in a little bit.
Attention, new listeners. We produced a free training video series called 7 Training Tips That Could Save Your Life. We want you to have access to this life-saving information. Get instant access now at studentofthegun.com. Do you watch Student of the Gun TV, read the blog, and follow us on Facebook? If you answered no to any of those questions, you are wrong, but you can easily fix yourself. Go to studentofthegun.com to find everything SOTG.
All right. Like Alex said, if you're not listening louder, you're wrong. It dumbfounds me. I am dumbfounded when people say things like, how come you're not on what is it, Pursuit Channel now? I'm like, dude.
We have our own channel.
Yeah, we have our own channels. So my point is this. If you're not availing yourself to everything that we have to offer, you're really missing out. Now, studentofthegun.com is a central hub. If you want to find out where you can watch the TV show, where you can listen to the radio, we already know that because you're listening, where you can read the articles, books, all that jazz. Go to studentofthegun.com and go from there. All right, without further ado, I am very excited and happy to introduce our special guest for today. His name is David Benner, and he is the author of Compact of the Republic. Jared, go ahead and unmute his mic. Now, the subtitle is The League of States and the Constitution. Dave, do you mind if I call you Dave?
Sure, by all means.
All right. Dave it is. Dave is here, man, as opposed to not being here. But, David, you wrote this book. We really appreciate it. Our good friend Doug Schultz provided us signed copies by you as kind of was it a Christmas gift, Jared?
It was some kind of gift.
I think it was a Christmas gift.
I think it was. So, because that was a couple months ago.
Yeah. Well, and I have been reading it. As a matter of fact, I've been reading it with a highlighter and a pencil in my hand. That's how I read paperback books, because especially things like this. Dave, tell us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to write this book.
Sure. Well, I am an American historian that focuses on the early republic and the founding period, and I kind of got into that in my last years of college. And what inspired me really to write this book was the fact that much that I had read about the American founding and the early republic period, I thought was kind of contradictory to the primary sources, especially the narratives that I got in public school growing up and some collegiate teachings as well. I think that this book challenges the nationalist narrative that, the Constitution imposed this really superlative, powerful federal government. Instead, it's really a compact among states with small delineated powers between the state governments and the federal government, and really the powers that the states delegated to the federal government were, as Madison said in Federalist 45, few and defined. So that's what spurred me.
And I'm guessing you're familiar with Clinton Rossiter's work.
Actually, that book you recommended is very good. I haven't fully read that one, but he has another great book on the Philadelphia Convention. So,
well, the political thought of the American Revolution is actually part 3 of a series that he wrote. The fantastic thing about that is my wife picked that up at a secondhand store for like 50 cents and said, "I thought you'd be interested in this." Like 5-6 years ago or so, and I got it and I looked at it and I thumbed through it, and it was an old copy from like 1969 or something like that, and I sat down and I read it and I was like, holy crap. And that book, and if you find a copy today, if you find a used copy because it's out of print, that book is usually stamped in some manner that says property of, I think mine says property of Ann Arbor Public Schools. They actually used to use it as a text in public high schools and colleges. And it's a shame. It's criminal that they don't. Because what's in that is thought-inspiring. And it, like you said, it flies in the face of the conventional wisdom that, well, the federal government is all-powerful and supersedes and trumps everything. So you just have to be quiet and do what you're told. Now, the Compact of the Republic book, The League of States, one of the things that you get into there, and this is something that I really enjoyed, you go back to the Tea Act of 1773, and you discussed how it was not just in Boston, how there were actually Tea Party protests all over the colonies. And most people obviously just think of the Boston Tea Party, but what they don't realize is there were other port cities that did very similar things, like let the tea sitting on the docks or refuse to have it offloaded from the ships. But something that we're never taught, and we're taught that the colonists, or the big narrative is, their beef with the tea was the tax on it. And that's not really so much the case, is it? Because the tax actually lowered the cost. What was the big beef that they had regarding the Tea Act of 1773?
That's absolutely accurate. And don't get me wrong, the colonists, by and large, at least those loyal to the patriot cause, did have a problem with unlegislated taxes, because they went back all the way to the Magna Carta and said, our forefathers said that taxes had to be levied with the consent of the people's representatives. But the most controversial fact, as you point out, was the fact that it imposed a mercantilistic policy on the American colonies. And by that, I mean it prevented competition from getting into the market and selling tea. So basically what the British government did under the Crown was take this company that was going bankrupt, the British East Indian Tea Company, and said that it had exclusive right to sell tea to North America. This was essentially an individual mandate. So if you wanted tea, you had to buy it from this company. And we can see how, there's some parallels between that time and today, just with other goods and services, right?
Absolutely. I mean, when I saw that jumped off the pages at me. I was like, you mean our forefathers protested violently the government mandating that they had to purchase one specific product from one specific company?
So for you youngins out there, that would be like the government saying that you have to buy an iPhone from Apple. You cannot buy any other phone.
And I know some of you might be thinking, oh, that's a good deal. But what if they said you have to buy a Motorola T1000?
Yeah.
And that is the only phone you're allowed to use because Motorola is going bankrupt and you need to support them. How would you feel then? I just put the ball in your court, didn't I? They're like, what is a T1000? Wasn't that a car in the 80s?
It was like a Thunderbird
made
1000.
Made by Pontiac? No, I really enjoy that. And what's sad, Dave, is that we do have this institutionalized dumbing down of probably the most important subject to a citizen, and that is civics or U.S. government or constitutional law or whatever. All the other things all the other subjects you learn in school, the most important subject that you need to know as a citizen and a child that's going to grow to be a citizen of your community, of your state, of your country, is civics. And why is it that we do what we do? Is this all just like some grand happy accident? It's almost as if, well, the United States of America it was just gonna be. We know that some people had to do a few things and sign a few letters and go back and forth, but it was just gonna happen. And if we look at history, that really is not the case. People assume that the Constitution was a grand idea that was accepted universally by everyone in the colonies. And as you point out in the book, was that the case? Did everyone in the colonies after we won the war? And so everyone said, woohoo, give me that piece of paper. I'm going to sign it right now. We're going to have a Constitution. It wasn't an easy sell, was it?
No, absolutely not. In most states, in fact, it was extremely controversial, especially in Virginia and New York, some of the most powerful and prestigious states at that time. And some of the most very famous people in the United States were dead set against it. Among them was Patrick Henry, the famous orator of the American Revolution, and George Clinton, not the Parliament singer, but the governor of New York. So, yeah, the Constitution had a lot of opponents, and almost every charge imaginable was levied against it. This thing's going to do this. This thing's going to be a Pandora's box, etc. But we can draw a lot of honest scholarship from the responses that the Federalist supporters gave of the Constitution when it was, condemned and criticized so much. So.
Well, and I think people say that the people on our side they'll say, see, they were right. We should have never done that. Well, my take on it is if you read the Federalist Papers, there were warnings within the Federalist Papers by the authors that, hey, we're going to do this, but if you stray, if you go away from the rules, if you ignore the rules, these are the perils that we will see. And what's kind of bone-chilling to me when I read that, I see the warnings. I don't remember if it was Jay or who it was in the Federalist, but they essentially predicted the American Revolution. I'm sorry, the American Civil War. They predicted the circumstances that led to the Civil War. He's like, okay, you guys need to follow these rules, but if you don't, this is what's going to happen. And they weren't stupid, and they certainly weren't doing this out of impulse. The Founding Fathers knew the history of man, and they studied Locke, and they studied the Magna Carta, and what's really, thank you very much for putting that in there, because I read the Magna Carta all the way through, probably for the first time since I was a junior, since I was a junior in high school. But it's amazing to me how people they have this assumption like, oh, well, it was just going to happen or whatever. Or because we have a constitution, that means that the states are now subservient and have no rights if the federal government decides this or that.
The Constitution as a whimsical or impulsive experience, and it really was not. It was based on a deliberate understanding of history, one that the founders were very, very well acquainted with, much more so, I think, than we are today. And for giving the reasons to support some of their arguments in the Philadelphia Convention and the state conventions, they always pointed back to philosophical and historical circumstances as background. So,
yeah, these were very educated men. These were not men that like just fell out of a tree on their heads and they're like, oh, we've got some slaves and we've got some tea and let's have a country here. These guys, they were highly educated, and they saw and they realized that throughout the entire history of really mankind, that up till and you know what's funny is we fought against Britain, but at that time the United Kingdom, the people in the United Kingdom had more liberty than most people who were inhabiting planet Earth, and they wanted that. That's another thing. It's like the British are coming. It's like, no, people in the colonies considered themselves to be sovereign British citizens.
Yeah, they definitely did take hold of the traditional British liberties that had been solidified over the centuries. And I kind of point that out in the book. The colonies were part of a federalistic system, that the key thing that bound them to the other British colonies was not English Parliament. It was actually the king. The king was the executive. But at the same time, they thought most measures could be handled locally and with their state legislatures. Most of them had never been to London, so why should they respect the legislature of England over that of Hartford or Philadelphia or Richmond? So,
well, and the thing I believe that is the most important for everyone in the United States right now, especially thoughtful citizens, is the takeaway that at least that I appreciate from this book is the fact that each individual state was thought of as a state, using the traditional term state. Now, we kind of get away from that. Like when you learned history and geography and so forth in high school, they talked about, you know, the Soviet Union or Germany or Australia or whatever as a state. And the state was synonymous with country. Well, then we come to the United States, and people put the term state in a subservient class. Well, there's a country, and that's the most important thing, and then you have states, and they're below it. But that's really not the way it was supposed to be. And how many people listening do you think realize that that state senators, or that the senators to the United States Congress and the United States Senate were supposed to be nominated by the representatives within the state, not by popular election? That was one of the safeguards. I was just reading the book yesterday. Actually, I was sitting outside having some coffee, and that was one of the safeguards that was built in. They're like, oh, these guys won't get all powerful, or they won't become little mini dictators, because the people will constantly be holding their leash via their state representatives. And what have we seen? What has happened?
Absolutely. And this provision was a popular provision just for that effect. Some people thought that, the general government that would be created would get too out of control and too unbeholden to the interests of their constituencies in their home states. So really the 17th Amendment eradicated any position that the states once really held in the federal government. And a great part of that, too, was actually the state legislatures sometimes instructed their senators on how to vote. So that kept them very bound in line with the interest of their localities. And that was something that respected the fact that these people were won over.
Well, people say all the time that special interest. They're like, oh, our senators, our congressmen are this or that. They're owned, or they're swayed by these special interest groups in Washington, D.C. Yeah, that's probably true. But if we would have stuck to the original Constitution and made these senators, who now we complain that they're up in D.C. being bought off by special interest groups, or the power brokers or what have you. Well, the original intent was to make sure that the senators paid attention to the people back in their home states by holding them accountable. And if the senators stepped out of line, well, bam, the state legislature could recall them.
Right, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. And that's one of the worst parts, I think, of the amendments to the Constitution. I think among the worst parts of the Constitution now is the 17th Amendment because of what you just articulated.
And how is it that you and I can sit here on this little tiny Student of the Gun radio show and make this clear and articulate this, and all these high-paid talking heads that sit in shiny studios in Washington, D.C. and New York can't ever figure that out?
They get paid to read the screen. They don't get paid to think.
That's true. They get paid to read a prompter. They don't get paid to think. All right. Well, David, let's get to the nut cutting time. The people are excited. They want to buy the book. Where should they go?
All right. Well, you can get the book on Amazon.com if you just search for Compact of the Republic. Or you can go to www.davebenner.com, DAVEBENNER.com, and there's a link right in the middle of the page to it. So it's available on Amazon all the time, and I believe it's available on Prime. So I really appreciate anyone that picks it up.
And you guys out there, listen up, students of the gun. I know that a lot of you have bought it because you've actually taken pictures of the book and posted them on Facebook that you just got it. What I want you turkeys to do, if you went to Amazon, even if you didn't, if you have a copy of this book, go leave a review. It matters. It absolutely does matter, because there are people that haven't heard this show, that aren't going to listen, but they'll stumble across it, and they're going to read the last 2 or 3 reviews. And if the last 2 or 3 reviews are 6 months old, then they may or may not pass on it. So listen up, hippies. That is your homework assignment today. I want you, if you read the book, I'm not telling you what to rate it. I mean, if you didn't like it, be honest. But if you didn't like it, you're probably a communist, and you shouldn't be listening to me anyway. Or at least you're listening to learn. That's true. We do know, Dave, we actually have some communist spies that listen to the show.
I know where you are.
All right. Jared, do you want to go ahead and continue with the rest of today's show, and then we'll continue. We'll do the in-depth, deep interview for the grad program?
Yeah, we're definitely going to have Dave on for the grad program tomorrow. So any of you guys that want to hear that interview, if you're not a grad program member, you can become one for a measly $1.
$1 for a 30-day trial.
This interview with Dave that we're going to do tomorrow is going to be worth $1. I can tell you that right now. So go to studentofthegunradio.com, and you can follow the directions from there. And don't forget that Dad's homework for you. Go to Amazon.com, get Dave Benner's book, The Compact of the Republic, and leave a review if you already have it.
What you gonna do when it all comes back to the place that you never wanted it to come back to? And where you gonna roll when the bottom drops out and you got no place to go? Who you gonna trust when trust is a must? You better roll with the rest of us. So pack your bags and all the faith you can, 'cause it's about ready to hit the fan. Come to the ready. 2012, not about the re-election of an antichrist. Come to the ready.
If you're not ready after hearing that song, I don't know what to say to you. Thank you very much, obviously, to Madison Rising, the official rock and roll band of Student of the Gun, for giving us our theme song for Student of the Gun Homeroom, brought to you by Crossbreed.
Somebody did a pretty cool YouTube video from a point of view camera.
Mm-hmm.
They stuck a GoPro on their gun and did a Call of Duty kind of in there, navigating through the urban environment to that song.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Into the Come
cool.
to the Ready?
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, we're going to come to the ready, and we're going to talk this week. And generally on the homeroom, we talk about widgets and gidgets and gadgets and stuff. And this week, we're going to talk about the 223 versus the world. That's right. The 223/5.56 millimeter cartridge versus the world. Now, I feel relatively certain that someone, and probably more than someone out there in the audience right now, is saying, I'm all done listening to you. That's no different than a 22 Win Mag. It's the same ballistic. First of all, the 5.56 cartridge is not the ballistic equivalent of a 22 Win Mag. I've been seeing that for decades. Okay. Today, in 2016, it is not, I know this is going to come as a shock to you, but it is not 1974 anymore, or 71, or 69. It's 2016. And I'm going to tell you this, that projectile/bullet technology, powder technology, and ammunition manufacturing technology is better than it was 40, 50 years ago. Okay. Now, the black rifle is king. There is no doubt about that. There's no getting around that. And the AR-15 in the United States can be had in many different configurations and calibers and so forth. In addition to .223, obviously, there's the .204 Ruger. Good cartridge, flat shooting cartridge, excellent. If you want to kill groundhogs from great distances like nobody's business, the .204 Ruger is a killing machine. You've got 6.8 SPC-2, the special purpose cartridge developed by Remington several years ago. You've got the Creedmoor cartridges. You have the 300 Whisper, which was the predecessor to the 300 Blackout. You have the 7.62x40 WT Wilson Tactical, which is a fantastic cartridge. And all of those, and I know I'm missing one or two probably, heck, the 458 SOCOM can be shot from a standard AR platform design. SOCOM 9mm and so forth. But when it comes to universality, the .223 really can't be beat for a basic all-around rifle cartridge. I know some of you are like getting apoplectic and you're foaming at the mouth right now, but let me give you some examples. Number one, your standard 55 grain ball is good for practicing and training. You don't need anything fancy. All you need is 55 grain ball ammo to go to a class, to practice, to shoot steel. And yes, you can shoot AR-500 steel with jacketed ball ammo. No, you should not shoot AR-500 steel with green tip ammo. Green tip ammo is very brutal. It was designed to penetrate Russian body armor. Okay. We don't encounter too much Russian body armor anymore, but the cartridge is still available. Now, if you're just going to shoot cardboard and paper, and you can find green tip surplus ammo, there's some, I can't remember who it was, and I'm not going to call them out anyway. There was an online dealer that they did a big announcement that they had green tip in stock, that they had M855, right? And it was in stock and ready to go and blah, blah, blah. And I looked, and it was priced at 48 cents a cartridge. And they were excited to offer that deal to me. And I was like, I'm excited to not take you up on that deal. What? No, the only reason that I shoot green tip is because if I find it surplus inexpensively. Right now, my personal belief is the buy price point for 5.56 .223 training ammo is.
So would you say that you personally believe?
I personally believe that U.S. Americans need to own more black rifles. No, but seriously, 30 cents. 30 cents right now is the stock buy. If you can find training ammo, training .223 for 30 cents a piece, buy it. Especially if it's brass cased. Now you can, if you're lucky enough to have a rifle that will cycle steel case ammo reliably, you're like, I shot a magazine through mine, and it's only going to work for a while. We've already had that discussion about steel case .223. But if you can find brass cased .223 practice ammo, 30 cents a round or less, buy it. Bam, you're done. Now, what about other cartridges? You can get the super lightweight cartridges all the way down into the 40s. They go very, very fast, and they're great for shooting things like groundhogs and prairie dogs and varmint-type animals. I believe that Federal had, don't quote me on this because my memory is a little bit fuzzy, but I believe it was a 36-grain .223 that they were selling, they probably still are, as a varmint cartridge, as kind of a detonating varmint cartridge. Essentially, you had powdered metal that was covered by a copper jacket, and when it would hit, it would come apart. And the reason they designed it was so that it wouldn't ricochet in for long shots in the field. Like if it hit a rock, it wouldn't go another mile and hit a baby in a carriage or something. It would come apart. I would not shoot medium to large size game with that because it does horrible surface wounds but doesn't do any kind of deep wounding. Go all the way from 55 to 62 to 65 to 75, all the way up to 77 grain. Now, I know there are 80 grain bullets that have to be loaded specially for matches, but as far as like semi-automatic fire, your 77 grain seems to be the tipping point or the standard, and that is your Mark 262 ammunition. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, let me tell you this. I know for a fact that the Mark 262 round does tremendous damage on Homo sapiens and animals, and for both, I guess, creatures both 2- and 4-legged. We've given you numerous examples that we've referred to here on the television show. Was it on the TV show, Jared, when we interviewed Jim Gilliland? And he said about the Mark 262?
Yeah, that was before we even had radio.
Yeah, that was way before we had radio. And Jim Gilliland was a sergeant in charge of a sniper team in Iraq. And for close-in shooting, like 400 yards or less, they would use what they call an M16A5, which is essentially a souped-up heavy barrel M16 with a match barrel, match trigger, optical sight, magnified optic, all that jazz. And they loaded the Mark 262 in that. And they shot a guy. They shot an insurgent, and they scooped him up. And even that's the weird thing is we take the enemy combatants to the hospital in our world here, but he ended up in a trauma in a trauma tent, and the trauma doctor came out and he's like, "Wow, man!" He said, "You can really tell when you guys shoot somebody with your sniper rifles, with your M24s, and that guy was messed up, right?" And Jim said, "No, we shot that dude with the 5.56." He's like, "Oh, really?" Our good friend Shane Iverson, a good friend of the show, the head of CSAT mobile training team. When I first met him, we were on an assignment, and they issued us black rifles, and they issued us standard 55 grain ball ammo. And Shane was working with the teams at that time, and he was insulted. Remember I told you about that? He was like, "I can't believe they gave us this crap." And so he got on the phone and he made some calls, and he knew a guy he knew a marshal that he's like, "Oh no, we got tons of Mark 262. We can hook you up." He said, "Well, hook a brother up then, because we need good ammo. We don't need this practice ammo. These are like 2-legged Homo sapien creatures out here." So, and that goes back 10 years. The U.S. Army Special Forces and SOCOM and they have been using the Mark 262 to tremendous effect against enemy combatants for 10-plus years. And I can tell you this. Very recently, Jared and I, we were out in the field in Texas, and we went against feral hogs, and we went after them with. Now everybody had something. Well, not everybody. We had a couple of guys that had 300 blackouts, and one guy had a 308, and Jared and I both had 5.56 rifles, and they were chambered in the Black Hills, so they were loaded with the Black Hills 77 grain BTHP, also known as the Mark 262. And I can verify to you that I put a one-shot stop on a 150-pound hog with that cartridge. I know some of you don't believe, "That's bull crap. You ain't putting a hog down with anything less than a 30 caliber. Well, you need to know where to put the bullets. And that really is the crux of the discussion when it comes to what ammo are you going to choose. People are like, bigger bullet, bigger damage. And I was like, yeah, I get that. But can you put the bullets where they need to be? Yes or no? Because if you can't, it doesn't matter what you're shooting. Maybe if you put a 50 cal into them or something, but most people aren't going to walk around with a BMG. They're going to walk around with something that they can handle and you can carry practically. As long as you put the bullets in the right place, the Mark 262, people ask me like, "Well, I got a home defense rifle. What should I put in it?" And that's what I tell them. Put that in it. I said, you'll get by with ball. But if you do that, there's no reason not to. Now, the Marine Corps has a load. I believe the Marine Corps' OTW load is 65 grains. It's like an XM-19 or 7 or something. I can't remember that. But all of them are fiddling around. Basically, the only thing that the military uses green tip for is in their saws now. And they use it in saws and they use it for training. And maybe Big Army and National Guard still issues the green tip. But the units that actually know that they're going to be going out and whacking people, they use that cartridge. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Ladies and gentlemen, don't discount the 223. And when it comes to the 223, it's a very versatile gun depending on what ammunition you put in it. If you're going to own one for home defense, buy the good stuff. If you're going to go to a training class, buy the less expensive stuff. And if you're going to go out and kill varmints, buy the lightweight, super fast stuff. But 223, it's not going anywhere, despite what you've read in magazines and on blogs and what have you. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. And we've got some. My impetus for this was that we got a box of Black Hills 5.56, 3 different loads.
Oh, cool.
For us to test and evaluate from our good friends up there at Black Hills Ammunitions. All right, kids, that's it for this week. That's it for the public hour.
Yep. I know we've got a lot of new listeners today because of the Dave Benner discussion that we had. So I want you guys to go to studentofthegun.com, click on the orange button, get 7 training tips that could save your life absolutely free. It's a video series of 7 videos. There's some extra stuff thrown in there. And if you want to become a grad program member, I can tell you that the interview tomorrow is going to be worth $1, like I said earlier. You can get a $1 trial, 30-day trial for $1. Just go to studentofthegunradio.com, click on Become a Member, and then follow the directions from there. For those of you that have asked me questions about how to do the yearly, you can do that from the Become a Member tab on studentofthegunradio.com. Rather than paying monthly, you can just pay per year. All right, you guys, remember you're a beginner once,
a student for life.